I'm Jonathan.
And this is the show where we watch The Tudors and talk about what was real and what wasn't, and the story behind the drama. And so I'm Heather, and I have another podcast, the Renaissance English History Podcast, and I thought that it would be fun to go back and watch The Tudors and see kind of what was true and what wasn't, and what was dramatic and what was just totally made up. I
thought I would play the part of the history novice, which works well because I am a history novice. And I thought this would be a fun way to sort of learn about history by watching a television show. And
you're really getting into it. Like, every episode you comment on.
Yeah, I'm getting more and more into this whole thing. It's
you can see why it's popular.
It's riveting.
Riveting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is episode 9 of season 1, Look to God First. And just the regular, usual spoiler alert. Oh, 2 things. First, if you like this show, please leave us a rating on iTunes. It's a really important way that you can help us go higher in the rankings and everything like that. It's a big way you can support the show. And second, if you want to learn more about us and find out more about my other podcast and just who we are, you can go to watchingthetudors.com. And there's lots of information there. And you can also like us on Facebook, facebook.com/watchingthetudors. So, regular spoiler alert, this, when we talk about stuff here, we're actually talking about what happened in the episode. And then second, kind of your regular spoiler.
Yeah, just in like a general, more broad spoiler alert that, you know, we're going to talk about things that happen sort of in the future based on where we are in the episode. So, you know, don't be too upset if you hear something and think, oh, no, I didn't know that. So there you go.
Yeah. It's kind of hard when you talk about things in history.
Yeah, in history,
so you kind of know what
leave
happened.
Out other parts of history because it's all related. Yeah.
So in this episode, Henry gets really pissed off because he finds out that the court is not going to rule on his...
Yeah, and they're just not going to rule, so he's really upset.
He's really ticked off at that.
I think he's more upset than if they just said, no, you can't get it. It's
he's just like the tired of the waiting.
Postponement.
He hates waiting.
And looking bad in front of his girlfriend.
Yeah.
She's like, you're the king. I thought you were the king. Why can't you get this done? He's like, oh, well, I got to wait longer because the Pope said so.
The Pope says I have to come to Rome and blah. And there's a new ambassador from the emperor who is going to help Catherine of Aragon. She's happy about that, but she's sad to see her other one leave. And what else happened in this episode? Cardinal Wolsey has his big downfall.
Starting to go
Grace.
Down. Margaret died.
Yeah, the Margaret who was the Mary.
Yeah.
It dies.
Yeah.
So we can stop having that conversation altogether now.
Yep.
And those are the highlights. So you want to jump right into your questions?
Let's get into my questions.
Let's do it.
Yes.
How many do you have? Do you have a lot?
No, I don't have many questions.
Cool.
Like I'm starting to kind of...
You're just starting to get in.
I get I don't have to ask so many context questions.
Right.
And
I get you.
Yeah. I feel like I might be missing stuff now because I'm sort of into it.
Well, that's okay because people who listen along with you.
Yeah, we're all growing together.
Right.
So
you're like
the
journey, sharing the journey of history.
So to me, that's just like the trial. It's not really a question, but it just seemed like really staged. Like,
oh, you think?
I mean, like I wrote down the most staged trial ever. Like,
yeah.
Like the guy's like, yeah, we have the sheets. We have the bloody sheets. We're going to dig them out of the basement. Like,
yeah. And this was in the context of talking about whether or not Catherine was a virgin.
Exactly. Yes. And from how many years ago?
1501 to 28 years ago.
Gosh, it's so silly.
Yeah.
And then in comes Anthony Willoughby.
Yeah.
What's that guy's deal?
Well, he was a steward. So you remember how we saw in the earlier episode where Margaret, who's really Mary, married the King of Portugal, who's really France, and they had the big ceremony where they put her to bed?
Yeah.
So they would have ceremonies like that,
yeah.
And that was because a big part of the marriage was to make sure that it was consummated. So you would publicly go to bed. Like a marriage wasn't officially seen as valid until it was consummated. So you would have this big public ceremony where you went to bed. And actually, in the morning, a lot of times you would hang out the bloody sheets so everybody knew that it was consummated. So Anthony Willoughby was one of the people who was there putting Arthur and Catherine to bed, and he would have been younger, like one of Arthur's, Arthur's age.
Yep.
So now he is older, and he's saying...
he remembered all those good quotes.
Yep, he sure did.
And those quotes were
yeah,
like Anthony Willoughby is a real person who really gave this testimony in this trial.
And Prince Arthur really supposedly said that stuff.
Wow.
I'm so thirsty as I've been to Spain last night. I quite enjoy the pastime of having a wife.
Good times.
Yeah, but it's funny because I was thinking that I think those quotes... this goes kind of into the question of whether she was a virgin or not. But, Prince Arthur was quite sick. He died within just a few months. And so I don't know that he would have been able to. And it seems as if those kinds of quotes, you might have more of an insight into this having been a teenage boy. But to me, when I hear quotes like that, I think, he's like showing off to make it seem...
I think that's the person who has not had sex.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think she was actually a virgin when she married Henry for other reasons as well. But those quotes don't really do much to help.
No, they don't really support the cause of...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they weren't so into pop psychology at that time, I guess.
Yep. No. So next, the Queen is talking with Wolsey, and she is not having any of his stuff.
No, she's over it.
Yeah, she's just totally over it. I just love her, standing up for what she sees as right and just taking it to him. So that's cool.
Yeah, she really was quite stubborn and bullheaded.
So next, I'm wondering about Cromwell.
Let's talk about Cromwell.
Yeah, where is his loyalty? Because so let me think. So he's Protestant. So he's not on the Pope side necessarily.
Right.
So I guess he's sort of
and he's
on
also
the king's
closeted
side.
Protestant.
Yeah, so he can't seem too rabid against it or whatever, or against the Pope. But where is he? Is he fighting? Is he on the king's side? Is he like?
I think he's on Cromwell's side.
No, Cromwell.
Yeah, I think he's on Cromwell's side.
Oh, okay. So Cromwell's going for Cromwell. It doesn't really. If he gets a divorce, if he doesn't, whatever. Yeah, he's kind of going for him.
And the other thing is, I think.
And what about with Wolsey? Is he kind of going against Wolsey
No, he was loyal to Wolsey. He was a very close friend of Wolsey's, and he was loyal to him. I think until the very end when he could see that.
Yeah, till it was dangerous to even be close to him.
And at that point, he thought, all right, I'm going to do what I can do. But I don't think that he particularly ever, in less than a decade, he would be also the one who orchestrated Anne Boleyn's downfall. And, I think
he wasn't really on anyone's side,
and in
loyal
fact,
to anyone per se.
In her historical fiction that I've talked about before, Hilary Mantel makes a point of showing that, I think they show it in this, they have a masque that really happened to celebrate the downfall of Wolsey and all of the young Boleyn son and all of the Brandon and all those young guys.
Folks.
They dress up as the cardinal and pretend that the devils come to get him, and they have this mask about it. And Cromwell saw that, and I think at that point he said, all right, I'm going to do whatever I can do to bring you guys down.
I'm going to get all these people.
He really was just screw all of you. You have no idea what a good person you had and stuff like that. But he kept it, inside.
Yeah, he just did his thing.
He just did his thing and kept his head down and tried to do what he could.
Man, that'd be rough to see your if
your mentor.
If he looked, however he looked at him, mentor, friend. To see the conspiring against, what seems, not from what I know of 9 episodes of a television show 500 years ago.
Yeah,
it seemed like Wolsey wasn't a bad dude to have doing what he was doing.
No, he was.
He seemed to be out for himself as well, but he didn't seem. He seemed like he would have been good if everyone wasn't conspiring against him.
Yeah, and I heard somebody say once, who was more important, Wolsey or Henry? like in the early part of Henry's reign.
Yeah.
And the person said you couldn't have had one without the other.
Yeah.
Henry couldn't have become who Henry was without Wolsey.
And Wolsey needed Henry to become.
Yeah.
I mean, if he would have had a strong king that didn't listen to anyone, like he wouldn't have had room for it. And
if Henry would have been interested in bureaucracy and interested in all that kind of stuff, then he wouldn't have had a need for Wolsey. And they really needed each other. But and so I think it was hard for Cromwell to see that, but then he reached a point where he was like, all right, I'm not going to die.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to die. I'm not going to get my head chopped off. That won't help anything.
Of course, he does get his head chopped off later.
Not then.
No, not then.
So next, I wonder. So the next scene, they're at the bar. Like it's just that bar scene where they're all joking about what Willoughby had said, and I'm just curious. Like that was public knowledge.
Yeah.
I mean. Yeah. Word still got around, even though they didn't have television or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there was hundreds of people in the court that would have talked about it, and servants,
and they just would have gotten out and just gone and told every little corner. And
it was big gossip.
And I can just imagine it getting a lot more elaborated.
Yeah,
every telling.
Yeah.
Wow. So Henry was kind of not like he was a laughingstock, but I mean. Yeah, he must not have liked this.
No.
Just like it makes him look weak.
Yeah.
And I mean, he doesn't seem like he's the type of guy who enjoys looking weak.
No. He really saw himself as this really wonderful Renaissance prince who was beloved by his people, and it's pretty soon.
Kind of couldn't do wrong.
Yeah, and it's pretty soon after this when he starts to become the kind of tyrant that we now know. But
almost.
Yeah, and it's just sad to see that kind of transition, because when he first became king in 1509, like people were so excited about him, and he was going to be this great prince that was, going to make England so great and blah 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 blah, and it's just like he's turning into some kind of a crazy man.
I didn't even know he was looked at as a tyrant or whatever.
Oh.
My history is lacking. I just know he had a lot of wives.
Yeah.
All right. Where are we? Norfolk. He's going to gain from Wolsey's fall?
Because he's like one of the peers. Remember, Wolsey had him sent back.
Oh, okay. So it's not like he's necessarily in line for anything with Wolsey going down, but he's just not being actively ostracized or whatever.
Yeah, his enemy's gone.
Yeah, that makes sense. I wrote down Wild Tiara for that crazy tiara that
Anne was wearing.
Yeah, that was a heck of a tiara. Yeah, we have a 3-year-old daughter who's really into tiaras, so I have an eye for tiaras. Yeah.
Hannah would go crazy. Huh?
She would. I don't know. It wasn't blue. She likes blue and purple tiaras.
And then if she did have it, she'd probably leave it on the floor and we'd step on it and it would break in a day anyway.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Next, I have Bishop Fisher.
Yes.
What scene? This was when he was testifying?
Yeah.
Like, are they still in court?
Yeah, the court was still going on at that point.
Yeah. He's he's out of this world, man. Like,
yeah, I think he's like old and he's like, I'm over it.
He just doesn't even. He's just like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure they're gonna kill me. I don't care.
He's like, I served your grandmother. I was best friends with your grandmother. Like, you can.
I'm not sitting by with this crap.
Yeah.
And just. Yeah, he's like, I'm going to heaven sooner or later. I'm gonna have to answer for myself. I'm not sitting by when this crap's going on.
Right, exactly.
and I think it's safe to assume he dies.
Yes, that would be a safe assumption.
That would be a safe assumption. That's easy money right there. All right, yeah, poor buddy. And then Wolsey just seems worried in general, like, about everything.
Yeah.
Like, at this point. I mean, he's just... I guess he can smell what's coming, and he just knows it's coming from all sides, basically.
Yeah, well, he can tell. I mean, I think the signs are all there, and he's just like, all right. Yeah. So,
do you think then Henry and Catherine, I guess, were having dinner? I forget the exact scene, but they... Well, like, Henry was just yelling at her. Like, do you think he really would have, like, treated her like that? Or, I mean, I know it's hard to say. Yeah. It's not like you were, invited to dinner. But it just seems weird for, like, a queen. I mean, it seems like it'd be more professional, I guess.
And I mean, the thing is, at one point, I guess it was after the court, he just left Catherine altogether and stopped seeing her. I guess at this point they still had this kind of show court to try to please the court or the
people.
There's two courts. It's like that homonym show, court or court. Yeah, but I think he probably felt like he would have had to have tried to keep up this appearance of being a good husband, because the whole point of his suit is that he wanted to be married to her.
He loves her and wishes he could be with her. But
she's his sister and blah, blah,
he's
blah.
Such a scumbag.
Yeah. But I'm sure there were probably periods. I mean, her obstinacy did drive him nuts.
And I can imagine. I mean, especially, him being a king. I mean, being a reasonable human being, maybe I couldn't imagine him being so upset.
And also when, there's
being
so
a
many...
power-hungry king of the world, in his mind.
And if you look at it from a strictly pragmatic, take all the emotion out of it kind of viewpoint, you can't have children anymore. You didn't have any boys. Go live in a nunnery.
Go on. I get it.
You're going to still have all your honors. You're going to have everything.
It's not like you're going to win, and then suddenly he's going to realize he is in love with you, and you're going to have a great marriage.
What are you fighting for? What is, and I can understand him being like, I'm offering you so much. Yeah. Why don't you just take it, crazy lady?
Yeah.
And for her, it was, we've talked about that. It was her honor.
She's got principles.
Yeah. And so I can imagine that it probably would have driven him nuts.
I can see that. Okay, so another question. How long was it, and it's in reference to Anne being so impatient, how long was it from when Henry and Anne kind of first met till this trial happened?
By this point, it was around 3 years or so.
Okay, so so that's a long time.
And also, remember, she had been... contracted earlier as well, so she was already reaching marriageable age before she met Henry. So I
just meant for their relationship. So they've kind of been seeing each other, or whatever you want to call it,
and
for about 3 years.
Being told that she's been kind of being strung along.
We're going to be married next month, and that was 2 years ago. And okay, and then I get it showed Henry. Was he writing music? Or did he write? Did he play? He did stuff with music?
He was actually a fairly competent composer. That's how musicologists describe him. And in the late 15 teens, I'll insert the music here. There was the big hit in Tudor England was "Pastime with Good Company," which Henry wrote.
So the king had
with good company.
Had a hit song.
And there's albums. I'll add some links in the show notes. There's albums to some of the music that he himself wrote, and
it seems so cute or something like that.
Yeah, I mean that was part of his shtick of being this Renaissance king.
He played music and
he wrote books he wrote music and he was this learned. And also his upbringing, because he was the second son and he was destined for the church before Arthur died. He had a background in this kind of humanities education more than having been reared to be a warrior.
Yeah, I mean he was scholarly and also in with religion. And
yeah, exactly. And so he wrote and the "Pastime with Good Company" was all the hit of it was the number one pop song of Tudor England in the teens, and. The
top 100 of 1518.
And coming in at number one for the third year in a row. And so he was writing Greensleeves in that scene. And, there's this kind of myth.
He wrote that song?
It's attributed to him, yeah. I guess there's some debate about whether or not it really was him. But
anyways.
That's kind of what that was hearkening back at.
Well, go him.
Yeah.
He wasn't only just a wife killer.
No, and like I say, there's actually Alamiri, I think, has a an album of music that he wrote. And so you can listen. I'll put some links up in the show notes.
We'll put up some links for all those rabbit to find out the hit song that King Henry wrote. I just loved his outfit, man. That was a crazy outfit. Do you remember it?
No, which one?
It was like this black and white kind of like puffy, just wild looking thing, man. Like they really knew how to.
One of the things
how to wear a mean outfit back then.
I think I might have mentioned this earlier, but Henry loved having jewels in his coats.
Yeah.
And jewels on his hat.
He was a fashionista.
He was a huge, and they actually, I think I did say this in an earlier episode, that they have recently found some of the garments that he actually wore.
Mm-hmm.
It's very rare to have the actual garments because usually they were repurposed. Even in wealthy homes, you'd repurpose them because the dyes were so expensive and stuff like that. And so when they fell out of fashion, you do something different with the cloth. So they actually still have a hat, I think, and it was like this crazy beret thing that they have. This bright pink. It's like this nuts, kind of hat that he wore. And he loved in the portraits of him. You see these jewels that he's just dripping in his coat, in his clothing, and like jewel encrusted cod pieces and all this kind of stuff. And he was really into his fashion.
He was into it.
Mm-hmm. And also, something else at this time period was as trade and stuff. They were getting all kinds of new colors and dyes and stuff that hadn't been available before.
Yeah.
So they were like starting to really do some experimentation with colors and things like that.
So it's like brand new stuff.
Yeah.
It's like ultra cutting edge.
When you get cochineal from Brazil or wherever cochineal came from, that was like the big thing. Was all new in the ports of Southampton, cochineal. I guess they say cochineal.
I don't know what that is.
It's like a red dye that you get from the eggs of an insect that's like found only in, I forget, it's like...
And it's like a really
in
awesome
South America
color.
Somewhere, yeah. And it's this bright, vibrant red. And
nice.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So the next is the shocker.
The shocker.
Of the ruling, if you want to call it that.
The non-ruling.
Yeah, exactly. So, big answer, drum roll, please. You got to go to Rome in October.
It's not a bad time to see Rome, right?
No, but it is when you got an antsy girlfriend calling you out all the time because you can't get your business done,
and you're still having dinner with your wife,
even though you're the damn king. And you're sleeping in bed with her, and
not a good scene.
No. So when was this trial that we're watching that just finished up? Like when in the year is that?
June, July, summer. June.
Okay, so June or July. So July, August, September. So they have to wait like 3 more months, 4 months or something. Okay.
And that's just to go to Rome. So
I know. And then the trial, and then he must be so mad. He must be like, but I'm the damn king. Like like
how king? What the hell?
How am I getting jerked around? I'm the king.
Yeah.
Like
it's a new experience for Henry, isn't it?
I think for like any king, that's not some pushover like country that, man.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, and then just my next note, poor Wolsey. Like, he must be like, damn it, Carpeggio. Like, you don't know what you're doing to me, man. Yeah. So then we see Anne and Henry, and she was, hipping him to the Protestant movement going on. And he's like, let me get a load of this book. Yes. Do we know, was that... not necessarily like that interaction happened, but do we know that Anne kind of was a Protestantism like influence on Henry? Yeah. Okay, so she was into that. Mm-hmm. And there's like stories that she did introduce him to some of that literature and stuff. Oh, okay. I don't know exactly how true that is. Somebody who's a Tudor court expert would probably know about letters and things that existed, but she did have those kinds of writings, and it was part of the plan to say, well, maybe you can look at this and see whether this might be something you'd be into. And were all the Boleyns like Protestant? people, or not necessarily? Was that just a her thing?
I think they would have leaned Protestant. I don't know. I would have to look that up. I mean, I think it's hard because it's not like it was also new.
And it's also not, you kind of couldn't be that open about it.
Yeah. And
so.
Anne was educated. I think for Anne, it wasn't even necessarily so much that she was totally Protestant, but
she wasn't super Catholic.
Yeah. And she was educated at the court of Margaret of Austria and in the French court. And the women who were in charge of there was a lot of desire for reform within the Catholic Church with those women where she was educated, and so I think she would have come into contact with those
more sort of liberal leaning,
not more than necessarily full on Protestant, but but she
just
did
not a total devoted to the Pope.
Yeah, and then I think once she saw that Protestantism would help her cause, then it quickly became her conscience to Protestant.
It became easier.
Yeah.
So what's Grafton House? Is that?
It was just one of his
another
homes.
One of the places, kind of like Wolsey had that
Hampton Court, or Whitehall, and
Whitehall. So they're all just different fancy.
And Henry had hundreds.
And that
of houses.
and those are all those things. Like we were watching that show on the other night. The Alton
Great British,
Towers,
yeah. They're now like stately homes and stuff.
Like that's kind of those things.
Yeah.
Like just big, giant.
Yeah. And, they would have belonged, they would fall into Henry's hands, that it goes way back, like the way the land was, that, there would be manors, and then it's like feudalism, and there'd be like the person over the manors and the lords and this level and that level and that level. And so some of it would fall into the king's hands if the Duke of so-and-so was convicted of treason, and then Henry'd get all of his lands or whatnot. And interestingly, like 100 years before, in the 15th century, the Earl of Warwick became the richest nobleman who wasn't the king when he inherited through marriage. His wife had inherited, and so he got it. Something like 200 manors he got.
That's crazy.
It was this insane, and he already had land. And of course, at each of those manors, there'd be somebody that ran it and stuff, but he could just roll up any time and be like, hey, I'm here in my house. And he collected rents from all those different places. And, in theory, he then was supposed to be a good lord to them and,
and protect them.
And all that kind of stuff. But yeah, he had, and he wasn't even the king, and he had I think it was close to 200 that he inherited, and he already had a bunch.
Yeah.
So how do you keep all that straight? We have a hard time figuring out our house in California with our renter.
Yeah, I know.
I can't even wrap my head around how would you.
Yeah, and you're dealing with like messages sent by horses and stuff.
Yeah, so Henry had hundreds of places he could just roll up.
And all right, so Grafton House, just another one of the awesome houses.
Yep.
And then next, Margaret died a horribly graphic death.
Yeah.
God, that was something. It's like,
that was terrible.
Hey, servant. I'm not feeling too good. Oh,
right.
Just like, wow, I was really not kind of prepared for that.
Exactly.
And then kings. Are kings really not allowed to go to funerals, as they said?
Yeah, I mean, it was considered it was considered treason to imagine the death or even talk about the death of a monarch. So if you saw the monarch there, it could be treason. So yeah, I'm not sure when that changed, because now people go to funerals and stuff. But at that time, it was still...
That was a thing.
It was, they wouldn't go because you couldn't contemplate their mortality or anything like that. Yeah.
Okay. So the Thomas More conversation, like, I was kind of confused with that. He was talking with Wolsey about, his time. Where did he send him? France?
Yeah. Cambria.
Yeah. And so he sent him to try... What? Can you explain it again?
Yeah, it was like, it's crazy European foreign policy that the France was having a meeting with the emperor,
Okay,
yeah,
so
and
Spanish
so
by Charles.
he wanted England to show up, to roll up and be like, hey, and the Pope
So
was all
Wolsey
going to be like, they were going to be
more.
there. Yeah, so he wanted more to roll up and be like, hey, remember, you guys don't like each other, so don't make peace.
Oh, so so Wolsey was sending more to like blow it all up, kind of thing.
And also
and
remind
have him be like, yeah, we have a treaty with you, France, and we had a treaty with you, but you did that, and then and hey, Pope, like, why are you even here? Because he kidnapped you and sacked your town, and okay, and so more went, and and then and he didn't do that.
Nope.
Okay, now it's making sense,
and
so that's why Wolsey was so upset.
Yeah.
And he's
because they're all friends then,
and so Moore's kind of being like a jerk here.
Yeah,
I mean,
Moore's
it seems
kind of
like because he's just kind of like, oh yeah, I knew you wanted me to do that, but whatever, I didn't do it. Haha, sucks for you.
I'm happy because people
trade
authority.
agreements. I got trade agreements, so I'm stoked.
And papal authority is restored in Europe,
and
so
there's
hooray.
peace. Like, and there's peace. Like, that's the big thing because there's like basically. Yeah. England's at peace with France. France is at peace with Spain.
But there's
Spain's
that's going to last for like a month,
well,
right?
Of course. I mean, it all. But, for right that moment.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
They could have waited until Henry got his divorce to make some peace.
Okay. And I think I asked you about this off the air, so I think I remember the answer. But for the benefit of everyone, I was wondering if Henry was the kind of started Protestantism by breaking with the church, or I guess
in England, he, it really was like this kind of. It was already going really strong in Germany, and that's what we saw.
There was already a movement going on.
They were talking about in the German wars, all the different, hundreds of thousands of people died.
That's right.
And it was really nasty. And
also the people who wrote the books and stuff. Yeah. I mean, they all had to have a school of thought to come from.
Yeah. Okay. And I think there had been kind of philosophies along the line of Protestantism for a long time in England. There was the Lollards, and there was, there's always different kinds of fringe groups.
But I guess, sorry, should you go on? Or?
Yeah, no, whatever. No, you ask me.
Was there a church? I mean, when he, I said we're jumping ahead a little, but when he formed the Church of England, was that the first kind of official Protestant church?
That was the first ever non-Catholic church
that's what I
since
mean.
Pagan times. Yeah.
So he kind of did. I mean, in a way, he quote unquote started Protestantism, if you want to say that.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, it wasn't it was his brand new thought out of nowhere.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
But he was kind of the first one that charged ahead and was stuck a flag in the ground and said, We're not Catholic.
And he also, the thing is, though, Henry, that's what kind of makes the Church of England so unique, kind of Henry was never fully Protestant either. So up until the time he died, even the year he died, he had heretics burned at the stake, people who were too Protestant. Yeah. And, you could be killed for not believing in transubstantiation, that the bread would literally turn into the body of Christ. That was up until Henry's death. So he was never this full-on Protestant. Yeah. He wanted to have the Catholic Church, but with him being the head of it.
Yeah, he just didn't want to have to answer to the Pope.
Yeah.
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 All right. Yeah, and then Wolsey shows up and doesn't get a room.
I know, right?
That's harsh.
Yeah.
Just talk about not subtle. It's you thought, in case you were wondering where you stood with us, you don't have a room to stay in and he's to the place you invited me to. I mean, it's not he just showed up on a cold night. It's they invited him to go there.
And he's I have to change out of my riding clothes, and they're yeah, sorry.
It's not our problem.
Yeah.
Bye.
I know. God, it breaks your heart.
Rough.
And I don't know that a scene like that exactly happened, but that was Henry's style.
Yeah, yeah. And then Henry was all nice to Wolsey.
Yeah, that was also his
don't worry,
style.
Don't worry, brother.
Yeah.
So he would do, you were saying that before, he would like build people up.
Yeah. And before Cromwell was, 2 weeks before Cromwell was beheaded, he was given all these titles
Yeah,
and
that's
stuff.
right. You told me that. He made him the Duke of...
The Earl of Essex.
The Duke of Chutney.
A bunch of others. The Duke of Chutney. What movie is that from?
From Robin Hood, the animated.
Yeah, right. The Duke. Hannah, we haven't watched that in a while.
No, I am the Duke of Chutney.
The Disney one. That was so funny. Yeah. Okay. So the Duke of Chutney. Yeah. No, he would do this, and a lot of people have speculated why. And there's this theory that his whole idea was that what's plausible deniability then? How could I kill somebody when it's clear that I love them so much? I love them so much. I just gave them all these honors. How could I be responsible for, of course they must be guilty.
All right. Well, that's something.
Yep. And his also was he'd just let other people do his dirty work too.
Yeah.
He'd right away and be all right, I'm done.
So next I'm wondering what happened to Wolsey, because it wasn't very clear.
Yeah.
And I'm not, maybe we'll see in the next episode, but just out of curiosity.
Well, I think they actually turn it into, there was actually 2 separate incidents that it looks like they merged into one.
Oh, okay. So it's not like a straight, clear.
So in 1529, after the whole thing went down, he was stripped of all of his titles and his land, except for Henry let him keep his archbishopric of York.
Yep.
And so Wolsey started to go back to retreat to York, and he was going to go back, and Henry was going to let him stay
just lay
there.
low and
yeah,
do his
exactly. And then in 1530, he was arrested for treason, and that's what that looked like was going on in that. And so that episode in 1529 was actually just a stripping of. Yeah. And then in 1530 he was arrested, and that we're going to see in the next episode. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I bet. Okay. And he's on his way to be transported to London for a trial, which I'm sure he would be found guilty at, but he never has to go through that because he died on the way.
Oh. He
got sick and died.
A good time to die?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
All right.
Saves him a terrible trial.
Yeah, a terrible death. God, that'd be frustrating. All right. Norfolk seems quite happy with life.
Sure, his niece is about to become the queen. He doesn't have
Wolsey anymore. He has the king's ear, and
yeah.
And then a totally silly question, but I'm just wondering, so they were leading, I guess, Wolsey out through court.
Yes.
And people were throwing oranges at him.
Yeah.
Oh, boo you, Wolsey! I throw an orange.
Yeah.
So my question, did people carry around oranges to throw at people? If they just happened to see someone they didn't like?
So
hey, look, there's whoever. Throw it quick, Harold. Throw an orange at him.
Right? Oranges came from Spain. They would have been really expensive.
Okay.
So I don't think you would have,
you
if
imagine...
you even had access to an orange, you wouldn't have thrown it. And also, regular people wouldn't have had oranges. They weren't, they don't grow in England.
Yeah.
So
peasants weren't running down to the farmer's market
to grab oranges,
buying
and
a bag of oranges just to throw it at heretics.
No. Now they might. It's possible apples, but I would think
bread.
But the thing is, you wouldn't
you wouldn't want to throw anything.
You wouldn't want to throw
dirt.
I guess maybe rich people if they had extras, but
I cast an orange at you.
So
this is how much I despise you.
I'm gonna throw an orange.
I'm gonna throw a $50 orange.
Yeah, but
God.
I don't think average people would have wanted to throw, and also things like fruits that was really valuable. It was hard to.
And it doesn't seem like a very good insult.
No.
And if you're gonna throw pig crap, you know,
yeah,
that's insulting. An orange, it's
yeah. I think you'd throw rotten apples and bad fruit and stuff because that's just nasty.
Maybe oranges just show up well on screen.
Yeah, so, probably apples.
If you throw dirt, it won't even really look like anything.
Yeah, and rotten apples would just be kind of brown and not. Yeah.
All right, we'll have to get to the bottom of this.
It's a history mystery.
History's mysteries. Okay. So then, almost the last scene, I just felt so bad as the Cromwell gets the letter from Wolsey.
Yeah.
That must be crushing, to anyone to get, have your buddy, your mentor, your your guy, your guy.
Yeah.
Like, right, like, please do anything for me. And it's like, and you can't. It's like radioactive. Like,
you can't go close to him at that point.
Oh, it must be so hard.
Yeah.
It's like having to turn your back on, like, your family. Like,
I think it was for him. But I also think I think that he knew that Cromwell or that Wolsey would understand.
Yeah, cause, I mean, he would have to.
Wolsey was a smart, scrappy kind of person too. He would understand. Oh. But yeah, I think it would be quite heartbreaking for him.
That'd be rough. That'd be rough.
Yeah.
And then the final scene is Henry yelling at Thomas More for not wanting the chancellorship.
Yes.
I just, it doesn't seem like a good way to handle it. Like, you be my chancellor, you son of a bitch. Like,
well, I think he really wanted. Moore was really famous in European circles, so
I see. So it's a good status. It would have lent
some credence to.
Yeah. It's not just him getting. Him getting a yes man. It's like him getting a reasonable choice, kind of.
I think that's why it was so important to him. Like, later we'll see, before Moore was beheaded. Like, Moore was beheaded because he wouldn't recognize the Boleyn marriage, and I think that was like such an insult to Henry, because he was like, you were really important and you really matter, and like, you have to accept this.
And it's like, to me, it shows that it really is a bad thing. It's like, trusting this person yet not trusting them. Like, it's like, I trust your I trust your thinking, but your thinking's wrong in this thing. Like, because so blind.
Yeah.
But of course he takes it. So
yeah, he does.
So Thomas More
can't say no.
So Thomas More is the new Wolsey, like in name. I mean, maybe not in practice.
Yeah, not in practice, because Wolsey was also Wolsey was his civil job was chancellor, but then in that civil role.
But Cromwell eventually kind of fills the gap of the Wolsey in this situation.
Yeah.
All right. Well, those are my questions and comments and
Good
such.
Comments. Oh, I'm trying to think what kind of like larger extrapolatory themes there are here.
I think to me, jumping in, this isn't usually my strong suit, but
let's do it.
To me, it just seems like the transition. I mean, like from being married to Catherine, having Wolsey, how it was sort of when we get in episode 1, like Wolsey's running things, he's kicking Norfolk out, like Henry's married to Catherine, and it just seems like now, like this was really the closing of that chapter of everything. Catherine's on the way out, the Pope is on the way out, Wolsey's on the way out.
The old guard
Moore's
is out.
in, like Norfolk's back.
And things are about to become very complicated for everyday people who are going to be told that their way of worshiping is suddenly illegal.
That's so... Talk about annoying. It's like, come on, just do whatever you got to do, get your divorce, but leave like us out of it. Like,
what's really crazy is that if you were born in, say, 1520, and you grew up worshiping Catholic, and then in 1547, Henry dies, and then you have Edward VI, who's totally Protestant. Okay, so first, if you're born in 1520, all Catholic, and then suddenly you get into this weird kind of Catholic, but with Henry as the head of the church, but you still can't be Protestant.
Yeah.
And then Edward comes along, and you're totally Protestant. And you're like an adult by this point, at 27, 28 years old. Suddenly totally Protestant. Then Edward dies, and you've got Mary. So by this point, you're like 35.
Okay,
and
soon after.
1555, whatever. You've got Mary coming in, 53. And so suddenly,
Catholic.
And she's Catholic. So you're now like 33 years old,
like,
and it's back to like
damn minds,
totally
people.
the way you worshipped worshipped last year, totally illegal. Now you have to be back to being Catholic.
The way you were when you were a kid.
Yeah.
Before Henry's thing.
Yes. And then 1558, Elizabeth comes. And
she's Protestant?
She's Protestant.
Oh my gosh, these
So
people.
if you were born in 1520, you would have 1, 2 post-Henry, 3 Edward, 4 Mary, 5 Elizabeth, 5...
It's like if anyone asks you, like, what religion you are, you're like, I'm
I don't
English. Know. Like, just whatever is not going to get me killed.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You tell me.
Yeah.
Are we Protestant today? Are we Catholic?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that's like... within a person's lifetime. I mean, that's like if you're born in
Oh, I know,
1520
yeah.
to 1558, you'd be
Yeah.
38. You'd still be alive then.
That's
like
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And each time you're told that if you do it the other way, you're going to go to hell.
It's like
your
the end
your
of-
soul, your eternal damnation.
God's confused.
God's seriously confused.
God, what is going on up? It's like someone's playing with a light switch or
Right.
whatever. Like, quit playing with the light switch.
Must have been so confusing for people. Anyway, okay, so that's our story.
Yeah. Any other overriding themes that you saw?
No.
It's all falling apart.
It's all falling apart for Woolsey.
Yeah.
And Anne's got to act quick too. And that whole idea, she's not
She's
getting any
losing
younger.
the prime of her.
Yeah, she's
her
not
life.
getting any younger.
Nope.
Yeah. Cool. So we will be back next week. Thank you for. Yeah, we will be. We were sick. Now we're not.
Yeah, and I think our voices will be back to normal next time.
Cool.
So.
So remember to leave us a rating on iTunes.
It would really help.
And
help other people find us.
Facebook.com/watchingthetutors, watchingthetutors.com, all that good stuff. Thank you for listening. And we will talk to you again soon.
Yeah, have a great time.